Okay, in this video we're going to go through the setup process for a ZedaSoft RDS reconfigurable desktop system. The system ships in two pieces. We have a computer case here and the structure and monitor and peripheral case here. So the first thing we're going to do, we've got our computer case set where the station's going to be. We have two outlets, 15 amps total of power available in this spot. So we'll turn these latches and take the doors off the front of the case. We'll set that aside. Do the same for the back. And we move over to our structure case. Same sorts of latches here. Open the door. There's a ramp here held by a bungee cord. Push that bungee hook out of the hole. Let the ramp down gently. It's a little bit heavy, so watch your feet. Got a large piece of foam here that we can set top. In this spot here, we have some extra things. We have a toolkit and a case for USB hotants. Take these out, put them on top of this rack here. And then we have the structure itself. So a large piece of foam here, that comes out as well. Then we just take the case, gripping it here by this piece of metal, and we roll it out. Lift it up over the lip of the ramp, pull it straight out. There's a little bit of resistance from the foam. You get there, pull it up over the lip of the ramp here as well, down onto the floor, and gently. Pull it back here to the position where we're going to set it up. Right over here next to the computer rack. So we have some leveling casters down here. We're going to turn them so that the wheels are in the back. And then we'll turn this red adjustment wheel to get the rubber feet in contact with the floor so it won't slide around. And these feet can also be used to level the station if necessary. Again, turning the wheel to the back so it's not visible. And then turning the adjustment wheel to put the foot in contact with the floor. And I'll do that in the back as well. So all four of the rubber feet are in contact with the floor. The system's stable now. We'll close up the case here. So we'll replace this piece of foam. This large one here. These cutouts on the foam go in this direction. So the wider part of the foam is at the top, and these cutouts are for the edges of the ramp. So we'll grab the bungee in our hand, put the foam in place, close the ramp. The bungee cord through the hole on the side of the ramp, and close the door. So one latch for now. Now, to get the rest of the components we need, we turn the case around and get access to the other side. Okay, so on this side, move it into the view of the camera here. We again open the latches. And on this side of the case, we have the monitors, cable roll, and some other peripherals that we'll be attaching to the system in the next step. Now we're going to prepare the structure for all the peripherals and monitors. So these are the HOTAS hangers here. We start by turning these knobs and taking these screws out from the stowed position around to the front and the position where we'll use the HOTAS. So we line it up with the receivers on the front, screw the knobs back in, get them tight. There's the throttle hanger done. Move over here, same thing here, take these knobs off. Move it around to the front. Line the holes up, tighten the knobs. So the HOTAS racks are ready. Now we'll move on to the monitor mounts. So we're going to start with the top mount. We've got some Velcro here for shipping that holds this thing down. Take that off, set it aside, and I'll do the same on the other side. Now we have some knobs here that tighten all these hinge points up. So we're going to loosen these but not take them out. I'm going to do the same thing with the 4 on the other side. Now with those loose, I can bring this thing over like this, and I push everything out and just let it fall into position with everything loose, and then turn these knobs back clockwise to tighten. Same on the other side. And then there's an additional friction lock here to keep the thing from tipping back on the inside here. Tighten that. That's the top monitor mount ready. Now the side monitor mounts will fold out all the way to the side. And we have adjustment screws here. We'll roll those back and get them flush with the plate that they're screwed into here in preparation for putting the monitor on. And then lastly, we'll remove some of the covers in the back. So there's a plastic plate back here with 6 screws. I'm going to use the 5/32 T-handle hex wrench and remove the 6 screws from the back panel. Set that aside along with the screws. And lastly, there's a cover back here over the cable patch panel. We just lift straight up to take that off and set that aside. And now we're ready to hang the monitors and peripherals. Now we're going to hang the monitors on the structure. We have everything set here, these folded out like we had previously. There are cables hanging down in all the different positions for each monitor. So these are for the touch screen, center out the window, top, left, and right out the window monitors. So we'll hang them first. When we hang them, you'll see that they're on the metal structure here, there are stops that the hanger is going between. You'll see me engaging with those when we hang the monitors. So the first one we do is the touch screen. Come down here. Each screen is labeled on the back with the name of the monitor. So we pull these pieces of foam out from the sides. Set those aside. Pull the monitor out, holding onto the metal hanger. Turned around. You can see the metal hooks on the back of the monitor will hang on the structure in between the 2 stops. and that will ensure that it's centered up. So touch screen. Next is the center out the window. Again, centering between the stops. Pop out the window. You'll notice that this monitor has two sets of hooks that go with the two bars on the top. On there, make sure it's in between the stops. Left out the window. These are mounted in portrait mode, so they turn to the side this way. And it's labeled left, so it's left from the pilot's perspective. On this hanger, there's only one stop, so we put the monitor on and slide it outboard until it touches the stop. And then last, the right out the window. Again, portrait mode. Hang it on the hanger and slide outboard to the stop. So the next step, we're at the back of the station and we're going to plug all the cables into the monitors. So you can see that there's a bundle of cables hung near each monitor. So touchscreen, center, top, right, and left. Again, right and left from the pilot's perspective. So each of the cables has a label flag on it, and it says the name of the monitor that it goes to. And if there's any question, if there's more than one connector that the monitor or the cable can plug into, then there's an additional flag telling you where it plugs into, and we'll see that on the center screens as well. The touchscreen cables have to be plugged in from underneath, so we won't do that on the video, but those cables are all here. You go underneath and plug them in to the bottom of the monitor there. Then here in the center, we have the cables for the center out the window. So power here. And this one has two flags. It says IG center, which is the name of the monitor, and HDMI 1, which is the name of the port that the cable goes into. And then we have that same situation for each of the other out the window monitors. For the side monitors, we take the cables and put them in the front of the metal structure through to where they can reach the monitor. Again, we're using the HDMI 1 port on the monitor. Do that same thing for the right out the window screen. And for the top. And now we're ready to adjust the monitor positions. So next we adjust the positions of the two side out the window screens. So we just take this hanger and turn it until the two monitors touch. And then as this monitor hangs on this hanger, it's not perfectly plumb. So there's an adjustment screw back here. We use the 3/16 T-handle hex wrench, and we tighten that screw, watching the front of the monitor, watching the face of the monitor, and turn it until the face is flush with the other monitors and the monitor's plumb. And then we repeat that process for the right out the window screen. So next we'll plug in the peripherals that go at the pilot control station. So the first thing we're going to do is hang this keyboard tray between the two HOTAS hangers. So we'll take these knobs out in the back here, pick up the tray, and put the tray in the middle here, and then these two screws go through the outboard holes on the tray and into the slots on the back. One on each side. Screw those in. Keyboard and mouse go on that tray. The mouse is plugged into the USB hub in the keyboard, and then this cable for the keyboard goes down here along this edge through the cable keeper here and into the USB hub on the bottom of the monitor. Next we have the throttle and stick. Take out the packing bubble wrap here. Throttle goes on the left. You take the cable, put it through the hole in the hanger. There's a slot in the bottom plate here for the cable, so keep that tucked in there. Down with the pins and the Zeus fasteners through the holes in the Zeus rail. Same thing with the stick. Cable through the hole into the cutout, and the Zeus fasteners in the holes in the rails. Then with a flat-bladed screwdriver, we screw into the Zeus fastener and turn a quarter turn clockwise to lock each one in, and you'll hear a little snap as it goes in. If you get any resistance trying to turn the Zeus fastener, you can press down on the device and make sure that the pins are fully seated into the rail. Again, these two, quarter turn for each fastener. And then there's a cable, a D-sub connector going from the throttle to the stick. That runs through the cable management system in the back, around to the front here, and plugs into the throttle, or into the stick rather, like so. This direction. And there's screws to lock it in. And then the USB cable coming from a stick goes through the cable management keepers on the sides and into the bottom of the patch panel in the slot indicated by the flag on the cable. So next we're going to wire up the back of the station. We have a big cable bundle here that goes between the station and the computer rack. The two ends are labeled, so there's a flag there that says station, a flag on the other end that says rack. So we're going to unhook this power cable here, run that out the side toward the rack. Then through the same slot, take the station end of the cable bundle and tie it up with this cable keeper here for strain relief. And just as with the monitors, each of these cables is flagged with the name of the port that it plugs into. So here's the DVI1 cable, goes into that port on the patch panel, screws in, and we have some audio cables, speaker, headset, mic, the HDMIs for the out the window. They actually start with HDMI 2. HDMI 1 is unused because it's normally for the touchscreen, but this touchscreen uses DVI connection. So for consistency, these are HDMI 2, 3, 4, 5. We have RS-232 for the touchscreen. That screws in as well. Two USBs, USB 1 and 2, labeled that way on the panel and on the cable. That's for the USB HOTAS and the keyboard and mouse. And then there are also two Ethernets, ETH1 and ETH2, which are used when there is a Ethernet HOTAS. Those cables go in there. If they don't sit down quite enough, you can unhook this and scoot the strain relief back a little bit, get them to lay down a little lower. Okay, those are there. That's everything plugged up through the patch panel to the respective devices on the station. Take this cable bundle and move it over toward the rack, and then we'll plug in the speakers. So, speaker on this side, cable's running over to there. The speaker with the volume control goes on the pilot's right. This cable from the other speaker plugs in to it. There's power and signal cables for these, which are all tangled up. So the signal cable plugs into the speaker, and then it's flagged speaker here on this end. That end plugs into the underside of the speaker port on the patch panel. And then a power adapter goes into PDU and power into the speaker. And now we're ready to wire everything, the other end of the cable bundle, up to the rack. Now we're going to wire up the back of the computer rack. So the first thing we'll do is, I've got these two power cables for the two PDUs tied up here. Pull these out to the side, they'll be plugged in when we're done hooking up the computers. Hang that there. We can also take the power cord coming from the station and plug that into the front of one of these PDUs. Tie that up here for now. We have the cable bundle, all the signal cables coming from the station. The other thing we need to do before we hook those up, though, the network switch, when we ship, has all the cables unplugged so that we don't put any pressure on the switch connection ports during shipping. So we're going to plug each of these cables back into the switch where they go. They're all labeled with their respective port numbers. The port numbers are written on the bottom of the switch here with the even or the odd numbered ports on the top and the even numbered ports on the bottom. There's also a guide here, a little sticker that says which ports go with different networks, and you can refer to the written documentation as well for the descriptions of the different networks. But the switch is set up such that different blocks of ports handle different networks. And they're color-coded as well. So we can see this says port 1. It's a blue cable for the simulation net. That goes in there. This white one says port 9. So we go here, look at 9, put it in that port on the switch. That white cable is for the I/O net. Then we have 5 and 6. So 5 here and 6. Green is the DIS net. And then on the other side, with more cables, is the black cables for the IG net. And the most important thing here is to get the two NASS labeled cables. So these say NASS and a port number. These have to go into these last two ports on the switch because of the link aggregation setup. So again, these are labeled 23, 24. We make sure that those are absolutely in the right place. Again, these other ones have their port numbers labeled, but it's less important technically that they go into the correct ports since it's just a network switch. But again, because of the link aggregation, it is very important that the two NAS cables go into the correct ports. This is what 19, port 20, and port 21. So all of the network cables that stay in the switch all the time are now hooked back up. And we take the signal cables from the rack, from the station, and bring them over here. So the first thing we do is tie this bundle up to string relief here. That nice and tight. And then just as on the station, each of the cables is labeled with the name of the computer that it plugs into, and if there's any ambiguity about where it plugs into, that is more than one port where it could go, then there's a second flag saying where it goes. So actually these first two network cables will go to the switch, and they're labeled with their respective port numbers as well, and they also say IO net, since these are the network cables that handle the Ethernet-based HOTAS that can optionally be installed in the station. So these go into ports 10 and 11. So we find those on the switch. You can see here that they're in the same group as the white IO net cable coming from the SIM-host computer. And the rest of these go to computers. So we have SIM-host RS-232. There's only one serial connection on the back of the SIM-host computer, so there's no additional flag telling you where to plug it in. That one screws in. There is a DVI cable going to the SIM-host computer. The computers can be identified by these labels here. So on the back of each computer is a white label with the name of the computer, SIM-host, the 4 IG systems, and then the NASS computer on the bottom. So we continue to plug these in. We have some audio cables. One of these will go to the SIM-host for the SIM audio. And these ones, the audio cables, have the name of the computer and the color of the port on the audio card. So this one goes to the green port in the SIM-host audio computer or audio card. These next two go onto the IG Center computer. They're on a different system because they do the DIS radio. So those go into the green and pink ports. We have some USB here. They both go to the SIM host. Now these are labeled a little bit differently too. The keyboard and mouse go into the regular USB ports built in for the computer. The USB HOTAS, says USB HOTAS there on that flag, has to be on its own USB bus. So there's an accompanying USB HOTAS sticker on an add-in card here. So this cable plugs into that USB add-in card on the SIM host. We have then the individual video HDMI cables for the different computers. So this one says IG top. There's only one HDMI port on the video cards on each of these computers, so there's no confusion about where it plugs in. This is IG center. This one is left. And right. Okay, that's all the signal cables plugged in. And we've got our power run. Now we're ready to bring the system up. We can take the two power cords from the PDU and plug them into our power strip here. And now we're ready to power up the system. Now that everything is wired up and all the cables are connected, we will get to turning on the computers. We'll go over the front of the rack here. We have an 8-port KVM. We have a slide-out console, all the computers with individual labels with the name of the computer. There's a set of additional cables here, USB and DVI, that are to hook up the other computers to the KVM, but normally they're disconnected and they only need to be connected for recovery purposes. So these will stay here under normal circumstances. To power up the system, we start by booting the NASS. Since all the other computers depend on services that it provides, it has to come all the way up first. So we put the KVM on port 8, turn this knob on the slide out console clockwise to unlock it, pull it out, open it up, it'll power on automatically. And then we hit the power button on the bottom computer, which is the NASS, and we let that system boot all the way up to the login screen. Now the NASS has booted all the way up. It's at the Windows login screen, so it's ready to go. There's nothing else need to be done here. You don't have to log into it or start any services or anything like that. So I'll slide this console out of the way for visibility. Now we boot the other computers. The first thing we want to do is make sure that all the license dongles are installed. I've already installed the MetaVR Versic dongles. The CBA dongle is in the toolkit. It's the screen USB plug here. We put it in one of the front USB ports on the SimHost system. And now we're ready to boot all the other computers. So now all the systems have booted completely up. The IG systems have automatically started MetaVR Versic. We see the dashboard there. Also, the center channel has a DIS radio application that runs as well. So to start everything up, we go here with the mouse, double click this CBA icon. That will start a launcher panel. The first thing we'll do is hit the start button for the IGs. That will start the Versic application loading all of its textures and doing its startup process. And we'll also hit the CBA start button, which will start the simulation. Now that all the applications have started, we see out the window views and all the out the window monitors. We see the virtual cockpit and the touchscreen. We also see the platform HUD in the center out the window screen. So when we see all these things up, the simulation is ready to be used. Once we've done some testing and we're certain that the station is operating properly, we're ready to do the last step, which is to put these back panels back on the station. So there's a rear tabletop here first. There are holes in the tabletop at the back that engage with some screws here on the station itself. So line this up, hold it back, press it down so that those screw heads go into the holes on the panel. Then we take the black panel that covers up the wiring here. It has a rough and a smooth side. The rough side goes out. We get some more screws and the 5/32 T-handle. And engage the screws through the back there. Tighten the wrench. And then repeat for the other 4 screw holes.